Captain Yuki gripped the armrests of his command chair as the plasma cannon's energy blast streaked through space toward the unknown human vessel. The Delonian patrol ship, Starfall, had been cruising through the neutral zone when they detected the strange craft drifting near their territory. Standard protocol demanded a warning shot first, then escalation if the intruder refused to comply. The blue-white energy beam struck the human ship's starboard side with devastating force. Metal. Plates buckled and twisted under the intense heat. Atmosphere vented into space in brilliant streams of crystallized air. Any normal vessel would have been crippled, its crew either dead or desperately sending surrender signals. Instead, the communication channel filled with the most unexpected sound Yuki had ever heard in 30 years of military service. Human. Laughter. "Whoa there, buddy, that actually tickled a bit." The voice was cheerful, almost amused. "You guys pack quite a punch for a welcome wagon." Yuki's three eyes widened as the main view screen flickered to life. A human face appeared, grinning broadly despite having just survived what should have been a lethal attack. The man had messy dark hair and wore a simple flight jacket that looked like it had seen better decades. He was casually sipping from a steaming mug as if he were sitting in his living room rather than a damaged spacecraft. "Name's Minho, by the way," the human continued, raising his cup in a mock toast. "Sorry for dropping by unannounced. I was just passing through when my navigation computer decided to take a scenic route. You know how it is with old tech. Sometimes it gets creative." Lieutenant Hana, Yuki's second-in-command, frantically checked and rechecked her sensor readings. Her forearms moved in a blur across the control panels, pulling up damage assessments and life sign readings. The numbers made no sense. "Captain," she whispered, her voice trembling, "our scanners show massive structural damage to their vessel. Hull breaches on 3 decks, primary life support compromised, and their power core is fluctuating dangerously. By all calculations, they should be..." "Should be what? Dead?" Minho interrupted, apparently having overheard. He chuckled again and took another sip of his drink. "Listen, friend, I appreciate the concern, but this old girl has been through worse. Remember that ion storm near Proxima, or that time the artificial gravity decided to work sideways for 6 hours? Yuki realized the human was talking to his ship's computer, which responded with what sounded like electronic grumbling. "Oh, don't be dramatic," Minho told the machine. "A little hull damage never hurt anyone. Well, except for that one time, but we don't talk about that." The Delonian captain found himself at a complete loss. In all his years of service, enemies either surrendered immediately after taking fire, or they responded with overwhelming force. They certainly didn't offer refreshments and make casual conversation about their ship's maintenance history. "You mentioned coffee," Minho said, turning his attention back to the view screen. "I just brewed a fresh pot right before you folks started shooting. Colombian blend, if you're interested. Picked it up at a trading station near Earth's moon. The vendor swore it was the good stuff, though between you and me, I think he was probably lying. Still tastes better than the synthetic stuff they serve on most ships." Hana leaned closer to her captain's ear. "Sir, this has to be some kind of psychological warfare tactic. No biological creature could remain this calm after sustaining such damage." "Maybe he's in shock," suggested Ensign Tay from the weapons station. "Some species experience delayed trauma responses." "Or maybe," Yuki said slowly, "we're dealing with something far more dangerous than we initially thought." Minho seemed to sense their confusion. "Look, I get it. You're probably wondering how I'm still breathing after that love tap you sent my way. The thing is, humans are pretty good at adapting to unpleasant situations. We've had lots of practice." He gestured around his damaged cockpit, where sparks occasionally flew from exposed circuits, and warning lights blinked in urgent patterns. "This actually reminds me of my first solo flight. Engine died halfway to Mars, life support was acting up, and I had to survive on emergency rations for 2 weeks. Good times." 2 weeks? Yuki couldn't help but ask. "Oh yeah, rescue took forever. Because I forgot to file a proper flight plan. Rookie mistake. But you know what they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Though in my case, it mostly just makes you better at fixing things with whatever's lying around." The human pilot stood up and moved to what appeared to be a damaged control panel. He pulled out a roll of silver tape and began patching a sparking wire junction with practiced ease. The secret is not to panic, Minho explained while working. Panic makes you stupid, and stupid gets you killed. Better to laugh about it and keep moving forward. Speaking of which, you folks seem pretty tense. First day on patrol duty? Yuki felt his mandibles click together in frustration. This human was treating their encounter like a friendly chat between neighbors rather than a potentially deadly first contact scenario. Captain Yuki's patience finally snapped. This human was either completely insane or piloting the most advanced warship in the galaxy, disguised as a piece of junk. Either way, he couldn't afford to take chances with the safety of his crew and ship. All weapons, full barrage, he commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge. I want everything we have pointed at that vessel. The starfall erupted in coordinated fury. Plasma cannons discharged in rapid succession, sending streams of superheated energy toward the human ship. Particle beams lanced through space, followed by a spread of quantum torpedoes. The Delonian patrol ship unleashed enough firepower to reduce a small moon to cosmic dust. The human vessel, which Minho had casually mentioned, was called the Lucky Strike. Disappeared behind a wall of explosions and brilliant flashes. Energy discharges lit up the surrounding space like a deadly fireworks display. Warning klaxons blared on the Delonian bridge as sensors struggled to penetrate the chaos of the attack. When the weapons fire finally ceased and the energy dissipated, Yuki expected to see nothing but debris scattered across the void. Instead, the Lucky Strike was still there, though it looked like it had been through a cosmic blender. Huge sections of hull plating hung loose or had been completely torn away, revealing the ship's internal structure. Sparks flew from exposed. Electrical systems and atmosphere continued to leak from dozens of new breaches. The communication channel crackled back to life, and Minho's voice came through as cheerful as ever. Wow, you guys really don't mess around. That was quite a light show. I bet that looked amazing from your end. Lieutenant Hana's hands shook as she stared at her sensor readings. The human ship should have been completely destroyed. By all known laws of physics and engineering, there was no way anyone could survive inside that floating wreckage. Damage report coming in, Minho continued conversationally. Let's see here. Lost about 40% of my outer hull, main. Computer is having what I'd call a nervous breakdown, and oh, his tone suddenly shifted, carrying a note of genuine annoyance for the first time. Oh no, oh, you've got to be kidding me. What? Yuki found himself asking despite his better judgment. You got my coffee maker, Minho said, and now he actually sounded upset. That beautiful, wonderful, irreplaceable coffee maker that my grandmother gave me when I first started flying. It's been with me for 15 years, survived 3 engine explosions, 2 pirate attacks, and that incident with the solar flare near Alpha Centauri. The human pilot's voice took on a tone of wounded betrayal. I mean, you can blow holes in my ship. You can destroy my navigation computer. You can even take out my entertainment system if you really want to be mean about it. But the coffee maker, that's just cruel. Ensign Tay, monitoring the tactical display, leaned forward in disbelief. Captain, he's actually getting out of his pilot seat. He's moving around inside that wreckage. On the view screen, they could see Minho standing up from his command chair, seemingly unbothered by the fact that his ship was barely holding together. Sparks showered down around him as damaged systems fought to maintain basic functions. Warning lights painted everything in harsh red, and the sound of groaning metal could be heard in the background. Excuse me for a second, Minho said politely. I need to do some emergency repairs before we lose main power completely. What happened next defied everything the Delonians thought they knew about spaceship maintenance and emergency procedures. Minho pulled out what appeared to be a roll of silver tape and began casually patching holes in critical systems. He grabbed random pieces of metal debris floating around his cockpit and somehow incorporated them into his repairs, using nothing but the tape and what looked like a basic handheld tool. So anyway, he continued while working, completely unbothered by the fact that he was performing complex repairs in a damaged spacecraft while maintaining a casual conversation with the beings who had just tried to kill him. I was telling you about Earth's weather patterns. We have this thing called rain that falls from the sky. Sounds simple, but it's actually pretty complex when you think about the atmospheric conditions required. Hana watched this impossible scene with growing horror. Captain, she whispered, her voice barely audible. "What kind of monster are we fighting?" The human continued his repairs with practiced ease, chattering away about meteorology, as if he were giving a lecture to students, rather than fighting for his life in a battle-damaged spacecraft. He twisted wires together with his bare hands, secured loose panels with liberal applications of silver tape, and somehow managed to restore partial power to several critical systems. "The interesting thing about thunderstorms," Minho explained, while jury-rigging what appeared to be a navigation console, is that they're basically nature's way of balancing electrical charges in the atmosphere. We get these massive lightning bolts that can carry millions of volts. Pretty impressive, though not quite as impressive as whatever you folks just hit me with." He paused in his work to look directly at the view screen camera. "Speaking of which, nice shooting. Very coordinated professional execution. You guys definitely know your way around a weapons system. Where'd you train? Military academy, private contractor? I'm always curious about different combat doctrines." Yuki realized his mouth was hanging open and quickly closed it. This human was not only surviving impossible damage to his vessel, but was complementing their attack techniques while performing emergency repairs that should have required a full engineering team and a proper shipyard. "The propulsion system took a pretty good hit too," Minho continued, crawling under what remained of his control panel with the silver tape. "But I think I can get her moving again. Might not be pretty, and she'll probably shake like a leaf in a hurricane, but movement is movement, right?" The sound of metal being hammered into place echoed through the communication channel, followed by the unmistakable noise of electrical systems coming back online. Against all odds, the lucky strike was becoming functional again. The tension on the Starfall's bridge reached a breaking point when Lieutenant Hana's sensors detected movement from the human vessel. After witnessing Minho's impossible survival and casual attitude toward their devastating attack, everyone expected the worst. The human had to be preparing some kind of terrible revenge, possibly involving weapons technology beyond their understanding. "Captain!" Hana's voice cracked with panic as she stared at her tactical display. "The human ship is powering up some kind of launcher. Energy signatures are spiking across multiple systems." Yuki gripped his command chair so tightly, his knuckles turned pale blue. "Battle stations, all shields to maximum. Prepare for incoming fire." The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as crew members rushed to their emergency positions. Warning lights bathed everything in urgent red, and the ship's defensive systems hummed to life with a deep, thrumming vibration that could be felt through the deck plates. "Projectile launched," Hana screamed, her voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. "Impact in 30 seconds." Through the main view screen, they could see a small object speeding toward them from the lucky strike. It wasn't the massive torpedo or devastating energy beam they had expected, but in their current state of terror, size didn't matter. For all they knew, humans had mastered some kind of miniaturized planet-killer technology. 20 seconds to impact, Ensign Tay called out from his station. "Whatever it is, it's not showing typical weapon signatures, but nothing," Yuki interrupted. "After what we've seen, I'm not taking any chances with human technology. Brace for impact." The entire crew hunched down in their seats, expecting their ship to be torn apart by some unimaginable human weapon. Junior officers whispered quick prayers to their ancestors, while senior staff ran final system checks with the desperate efficiency of people who believed they were about to die. The object struck their hull with a gentle bump that was so anticlimactic it took several seconds for anyone to process what had happened. Instead of the devastating explosion they had prepared for, there was just a soft thud, like someone tossing a pillow against their window. "What?" Yuki began, then stopped, completely confused. "Sir?" Hana said slowly, checking and rechecking her instruments. "The object appears to be non-explosive. In fact, our scanners are reading it as some kind of container. It's just sitting against our hull, not doing anything threatening." The communication channel crackled to life again, and Minho's cheerful voice filled the bridge. "Hope you folks don't mind the delivery method. My cargo bay doors got a bit warped in that last exchange, so I had to use the emergency launcher. Should be gentle enough not to damage your hull, though." "Delivery?" Yuki repeated weakly. "Well, yeah. I figured after all that shooting, you guys might be having a rough day." Stress can really mess with your head, you know. Makes people do things they wouldn't normally do, like firing on random strangers passing through the neighborhood. Captain Yuki cautiously approached the main viewport and peered out at the small package floating just outside. It looked completely harmless, just a simple metal container with what appeared to be a handwritten label stuck to one side. "What exactly did you send us?" he asked, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "Oh, just some care package stuff," Minho replied casually, as if launching mysterious objects at alien warships was perfectly normal behavior. "Some chocolate bars from Earth. Real cocoa, not that synthetic stuff. Those always make me feel better when I'm having a bad day. There's also a music playlist I put together. Good relaxing songs, nothing too heavy or aggressive. Sometimes a little background music helps calm the nerves, you know." Hana was running every scan she could think of on the package, looking for hidden weapons, explosives, or biological agents. Everything came back negative. It really did appear to be exactly what the human claimed. A gift package. "And there's a note," Minho continued. "Just a little something to clear up any misunderstandings. I mean, I get it. You see a strange ship in your territory. Your first instinct is to shoot first and ask questions later. Totally understandable from a security standpoint." Ensign Tay retrieved the package using their ship's external manipulator arms and brought it into a secure examination chamber. With extreme caution, they opened the container while monitoring for any signs of danger. Inside, exactly as Minho had described, were several wrapped chocolate bars, a small data chip labeled "Songs to Chill with New Friends," and a handwritten note on what appeared to be actual paper. The note was written in surprisingly neat handwriting and read, "Sorry about the misunderstanding. Hope we can be friends instead of shooting at each other. The chocolate is really good, promise. Minho," the heart symbol at the end of the E. Note was drawn in a different color ink, suggesting the human had gone back and added it as an afterthought. "You sent us gifts?" Yuki asked, staring at the items floating in the examination chamber. "Sure did." Minho sounded genuinely pleased. "I figured you might be having a bad day. In my experience, people usually only start shooting when they're stressed about something. The chocolate really does help with that. There's some science behind it about endorphins and brain chemistry, but the short version is that it makes most people feel better. But we just tried to destroy your ship," Hana pointed out, still not quite believing what she was seeing. "Yeah, and you did a pretty thorough job of it too," Minho laughed. "But honestly, you kind of did me a favor. I've been putting off some maintenance work on the old girl for months now, and your attack helped me identify exactly which sections needed the most attention. Sometimes you need an outside perspective to spot the weak points in your design." Yuki found himself staring at the chocolate bars with complete bewilderment. "You're not going to retaliate, launch an attack, call for reinforcements? Why would I do that?" Minho sounded genuinely puzzled by the question. "Look, I get that this whole situation got off on the wrong foot. You folks saw an unknown ship and decided to play it safe by shooting first. Can't really blame you for being cautious. Space can be a dangerous place, and you never know who you might run into out here." The human pilot paused, and they could hear him moving around his damaged cockpit, probably continuing his impossible repairs. "Besides, holding grudges is bad for your health. Stress hormones, elevated blood pressure, all that stuff. Life's too short to spend it being angry at people, especially when they're probably just doing their job." Captain Yuki sank back into his command chair, trying to process everything that had happened in the last hour. His tactical training, decades of military experience, and every protocol manual he had ever studied were completely useless in this situation. Nothing had prepared him for dealing with a species that responded to mortal danger with gift-giving and casual conversation. "Let me get this straight," he said slowly, speaking each word carefully, as if testing its weight. "Your ship is literally falling apart around you. We've been shooting at you for the better part of 20 minutes with everything we have. Your life support systems are compromised, your hull looks like it went through a recycling plant, and you're sitting there, enjoying this?" Minho's laughter came through the communication channel, warm and genuine. "You know what? Yeah, I guess I am. It's been a while since I had this much excitement in one day. Most of my flights are pretty routine. Jump from point To point B, deliver some cargo, maybe stop for fuel. This is definitely more interesting than my usual Tuesday. But you could have died, Lieutenant Hana interjected, her voice filled with confusion. You still could die. Your ship is barely functional. Well, sure, dying is always a possibility, Minho admitted cheerfully. But humans have this weird thing where we laugh when we're scared, stressed, or in mortal danger. It's like our brain's way of dealing with situations that would otherwise make us panic and do something stupid. He paused, and they could hear the sound of more emergency repairs being conducted in the background. Think of it this way. I can either sit here worrying about all the things that might kill me, or I can focus on fixing the problems and maybe have a few laughs along the way. The second option is a lot more productive and way less stressful. Ensign Tay, who had been quietly monitoring the conversation, spoke up hesitantly. But how do you function when everything is going wrong? Our species would be paralyzed with fear in your situation. Practice mostly, Minho replied matter-of-factly. See, the thing about humans is that we've gotten really good at surviving impossible situations throughout our history. We've learned that sometimes the best response to disaster is to laugh at it and keep moving forward. The human pilot seemed to settle in for storytelling mode, his voice taking on the comfortable rhythm of someone sharing familiar tales. Take Antarctic exploration, for example. Hundreds of years ago, human explorers would venture into some of the most hostile environments on our planet, places so cold that exposed skin would freeze in minutes, where one mistake could mean death for an entire expedition team. And they found this amusing, Yuki asked, genuinely curious despite himself. Oh, they complained about it plenty, Minho chuckled, but they also made jokes, told stories, and found ways to keep their spirits up even when everything went wrong. There's this famous explorer named Ernest Shackleton, whose ship got trapped in ice for months. His entire crew was stranded in one of the most dangerous places on Earth, and they spent their time playing games, putting on theatrical performances, and making fun of their situation. The sound of welding could be heard through the communication channel as Minho continued working on his repairs. Then there's space exploration. When humans first started leaving Earth's atmosphere, everything that could go wrong usually did. Computers would fail, life support systems would malfunction, landing modules would crash, and through it all, the astronauts would crack jokes and figure out solutions using whatever they had on hand. You mentioned improvised tools, Hana said, remembering his earlier comment. Oh yeah, that's practically a human specialty, Minho said with obvious pride. Apollo 13 is probably the most famous example. 3 astronauts were hundreds of thousands of miles from Earth when their spacecraft suffered a catastrophic explosion. They were facing almost certain death, limited power, failing life support, and a damaged heat shield. What did they do? Tay asked, completely absorbed in the story. They jury-rigged a carbon dioxide scrubber using duct tape, plastic bags, and cardboard from their flight manuals. Ground control helped them figure it out, but the actual construction was done by hand with whatever random materials they could find floating around their capsule. And the whole time they're making jokes and staying calm under pressure that would have broken most other species. Minho's voice grew more animated as he warmed to his subject. But it's not just the big, dramatic survival stories. Humans rebuild entire cities after earthquakes, hurricanes, and wars. We've survived plagues, famines, and ice ages, and in every single case, you'll find people making jokes about their situation, finding small moments of happiness, even in the worst circumstances. You find joy in suffering? Hana asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her earlier fear. Not exactly, Minho corrected gently. We find joy everywhere, especially where it doesn't belong. It's not about enjoying pain or hardship. It's about refusing to let those things completely destroy our spirit. When everything goes wrong, humans tend to get stubborn about staying positive. He paused his repair work for a moment. My grandmother used to say that laughter is the sound humans make when we're too tough to cry and too proud to quit. She lived through a war, raised 6 kids during an economic depression, and still managed to find something to smile about every single day. And that's normal for your species? Yuki asked. Pretty much, Minho confirmed. We're kind of notorious for it, actually. There's this saying on Earth, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But humans, being humans, We've modified it over the years. Now it's more like, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, then find someone else having a bad day and share it with them, while making jokes about how sour everything tastes. The communication channel filled with the sound of systems coming back online as Minho's impossible repair work continued to show results. Plus, let's be honest here, my ship was already held together with hope, stubbornness, and about 3 rolls of emergency repair tape. Your shots just gave me an excuse to finally do some of that overdue maintenance I've been putting off for months. The philosophical conversation about human nature was suddenly interrupted by urgent beeping from Lieutenant Hana's communication console. She quickly adjusted her controls, her expression growing serious as multiple distress signals flooded. "They're receivers. Captain," she reported with growing alarm, "we're receiving emergency broadcasts from the Kepler shipping lane. Multiple civilian vessels under attack by what appears to be an organized pirate fleet. They're requesting immediate assistance from any military vessels in the area." Yuki's attention immediately shifted from their strange human encounter to this new crisis. The Kepler shipping lane was one of the busiest trade routes in this sector, used daily by merchant vessels carrying everything from medical supplies to food shipments between colonies. An attack there could result in massive casualties and economic disruption. "How many ships are we talking about?" he asked, already beginning to calculate response times and tactical options. "At least 6 civilian freighters and 2 passenger." "Liners?" Hana replied, her fingers flying over her controls as she processed the incoming data. "The pirate force appears to be substantial. Initial reports suggest they have at least 4 armed vessels, possibly more." Without warning, the Lucky Strike suddenly lurched into motion. Despite its battered condition, missing hull plates, and jury-rigged systems, Minho's ship began accelerating toward the distress signals at what should have been impossible speeds for such a damaged vessel. "What are you doing?" Yuki demanded, watching in disbelief as the human pilot steered his barely functional spacecraft directly toward what was obviously going to be a dangerous combat situation. "What does it look like I'm doing?" Minho's voice came back with the same cheerful determination they had heard throughout their encounter. "People are in trouble. They need help. I'm going to help them." "But your ship is falling apart," Ensign Tay protested. "You can barely maintain life support. Half your weapon systems are offline, and your hull integrity is compromised. You'll be destroyed the moment you enter that battle." "Maybe," Minho admitted with characteristic human optimism. "But maybe not. Besides, I can't just sit here drinking coffee while innocent people are getting attacked by pirates. That's not how we do things where I come from." Captain Yuki watched the Lucky Strike limping through space toward the battle zone. Atmosphere, still venting from multiple hull breaches, sparks flying from damaged systems, and what appeared to be pieces of makeshift armor made from silver tape and scavenged metal plates. It was simultaneously the most inspiring and terrifying thing he had ever witnessed. Something strange began stirring in Yuki's chest, a feeling he had never experienced in all his years of military service. It was warm and urgent, like a fire, being lit somewhere deep inside him. For the first time in his career, he felt compelled to act, not because of orders or protocol, but because it was simply the right thing to do. "All hands battle stations," he commanded, his voice ringing with newfound conviction. "Helm, set course to intercept the pirate fleet. Communications, send word to any other patrol ships in the area. We have civilians under attack, and we're moving to assist." "Sir?" Hana looked surprised by the sudden change in their mission parameters. "You heard me?" Yuki stood up from his command chair with more energy than he had felt in years. "Follow the human. We're going to protect that convoy." Starfall accelerated to maximum speed, quickly catching up with Minho's damaged but determined vessel. As they approached the battle zone, they could see the full scope of the crisis. Multiple civilian ships scattered across space, some already showing signs of damage, while a fleet of heavily armed pirate vessels moved among them like predators, hunting prey. What happened next defied every tactical manual ever written. Instead of maintaining a safe distance and engaging the enemy with long-range weapons, Minho steered his battered ship directly into the heart of the pirate formation. The Lucky Strike, leaking atmosphere and missing half its armor plating, charged straight at the largest pirate vessel, like an ancient warrior charging into battle. "Is he completely insane?" Tay whispered, watching the impossible scene unfold. On their tactical display. Probably, Yuki admitted, but look at the results. Minho was using his already damaged vessel as a battering ram, deliberately colliding with pirate ships and using the impact to disable their weapons systems. His voice came over the communication channel, whooping with delight as he scattered the enemy formation. "This is actually kind of fun," he announced cheerfully while his ship careened off the hull of a pirate cruiser, leaving a trail of debris and confused enemies in his wake. "It's like bumper cars, but with more explosions." The Delonian crew provided precise covering fire, their advanced weapon systems picking off pirate vessels that were trying to regroup after Minho's chaotic assault. The combination of human unpredictability and Delonian military precision proved devastatingly effective. Within minutes, the remaining pirates decided they had encountered more resistance than they bargained for and retreated from the area. The civilian convoy was safe, though several crew members on both sides were left wondering exactly what they had just witnessed. Later, aboard the Starfall, Captain Yuki found himself sharing what remained of Minho's coffee supply, apparently rescued from the wreckage of the coffee maker, using another impossible feat of human engineering. The brew was surprisingly good, with a rich flavor that seemed to warm him from the inside out. "Minho of Earth," Yuki said formally, standing up to address his unusual guest, "by the authority granted to me as a captain in the Delonian Space Defense Force, I hereby name you an honorary member of our species. Your courage, determination, and willingness to risk your life for strangers represents the best qualities we aspire to in ourselves." Minho grinned and raised his coffee cup in a mock salute. "That's very kind of you, Captain. Though I have to ask, does this honorary membership come with any benefits? Maybe access to a proper repair facility?" "Actually, yes," Yuki replied with the closest thing to a smile his species could manage. "Next time we meet, we're getting you a proper ship, one that's held together with something more reliable than hope, stubbornness, and silver tape." "May I keep the tape, though?" Minho asked hopefully. "You never know when it might come in handy."